Hey T-Heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. In this video, Bonavita Gooseneck Kettle review. In this video, we are going to have a chill session and I'm going to finally give you my in-depth review on this variable temperature kettle. This video is going to go under the T-Wares playlist. If at any point in time you enjoy this video, then make sure you hit it with the thumbs up. The more thumbs in the air, the more T videos are going to come your way. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, go click that button. Okay guys, it's Saturday. As usual, I'm behind schedule and it was a heavy night last night. We were tasting aged white teas and pairing them with single malt whiskies. So I'm feeling a little bit fragile, a little bit worse for wear, but I'm conscious of you guys. We want to get a video out this weekend. So I'm going to have a chill session with you. We're going to drink some Sip Spring here. If you haven't had Sip Spring before, you might want to check it out. This is a Shaoqing Tieguanyin, so it's nice and fresh, really nice, vibrant. It's going to have the floral notes of a Tieguanyin, but it's going to have less of those creamy notes, a little bit more freshness. That's what I felt I needed to wake me up out of this groggy state. And I'm finally going to be giving you my thoughts on the Bonavita Gooseneck Kettle. Now, before we begin, I have to say a massive thank you to Bonavita. This is not product placement. They have not, there's no deal for a favorable review, anything like that, but they did send me this kettle free of charge for me to review it, and they sent it to me a long time ago, probably over half a year ago, and it's been ages. I know a lot of you out there have been asking for this review, and sorry it has taken so long. So I'm sorry to Bonavita, but the good thing about that is I have really tested this kettle. I've used it in so many sessions. So really, the review is very thorough. Okay, so I've done a review already comparing 4 other kettles. I'll put a link in the description below. And I think it's worth, in this video, for me to follow the same pattern and the same review categories so that if you wanted to compare them with the last video, you could. But before we do that, I need some tea in me. Right, so we're going to brew up some of this, and you can start to see the Bonavita in action. You can start to see the pour. We'll talk about that in a second. Really nice pour on it. Just get to know this kettle a little bit more. Let's have a sniff of these leaves. Oh, gardenia, a bit of lemon zest in there. We're not going to do too much of a tea tasting, but this is exactly what I need. So to quickly brew it up, we're at 90, well, let's see what the temperature is. One of the functions of this kettle, we're at 97 degrees Celsius, which is 207 Fahrenheit. That's always useful for me because I often forget the conversion, being a metric boy. Beautiful color on this liquor. Check it out. Whoa. Vibrant. Right, so let me have a sip of this and then we can begin. Start to rewire my brain. Ah, nice, fresh, vibrant, nice. Good dryness to it. Okay, shut up, Don. Don't start talking about the tea. Right, let's focus on the kettle. Let's focus first on the fact that I am not doing a review on this kettle based on coffee. This is purely tea, and I know that this kettle is specially designed for you baristas out there. So I have no opinion or thoughts about the coffee side of it. I'm sure that there are plenty of reviews about this kettle regarding coffee. So I'm just focusing on the tea aspect of it. Let's go to the first category. The first category of review, or the first thing that we need to talk about, is price, because I think let's get that out the way from the beginning. That way, when I talk about features, you can decide whether or not it's worth the price. The price for this varies quite considerably. I did look it up yesterday. In the UK, they're around about £90, something like that, which is, I don't know, about $110, $120. However, I did go to some US sites and I found it for $70. So it seems like the US gets a better deal. So let's say it's between about $80 to $100 is kind of what you should expect to pay for this kettle. This is the 1 litre version, I have to say. There is a 1.7 litre version out there, which is more expensive, about $120-ish or £120 actually. So it might be more like $130, something like that. Now, when we compare that to the kettles that we reviewed before, that's quite favorable. The cheapest kettle, apart from our little Camjove here, which was $50 in China and still is a classic workhorse. Apart from that, the kettles that were bought in the West or were sent to us for review were starting at, the Russell Hobbs one started at £80, so pretty much the same price. So good value for money, in my opinion. But let's talk about the features and then you can decide. The next category or subject for review is the build quality. And I think the build quality on this is really solid. Really has a good feel about it. You don't feel like there's any rattling parts. The lid doesn't rattle, which is a very common thing with some kettles. You get a rattling lid, especially when it starts to boil. You get that horrible kind of tinkling noise as it's boiling. So it's really solid. You can actually adjust the tension on the lid by playing around with these little, what would you call that? I don't know, my brain isn't working, but there's a way to adjust the tension on the kettle when you're putting it in, the friction as it locks in. But generally, quality is very good. Good solid handle, really thick, doesn't get hot when you're holding it. And the base is good quality. It comes with another plastic cover, which you can put on the base, and I usually do. I took it off for this review so you can see it much clearer, the display. But there's a plastic cover, which if you use the kettle a lot and there's a lot of spillage, and you know with Gong Fu sessions, there's going to be a lot of water flying around, especially if you get quite late at night like I did yesterday, 2-3 in the morning, we were drinking white tea and whiskies. So it's good to have that as an added protection. Keeps it nice and pristine like a phone cover. Right, problems I have with it though in terms of build quality. The biggest, and this is our big gripe that I have, this is the extent of the length of the plug cable. That is just way too short. I know that it's nice if you're planning to install this kettle somewhere in a bar and you don't want too much cable, but really for Gong Fu brewing, I want to have a long kettle lead. This is way too short. I like to bring my kettle close to me no matter where I am and just be able to move it around. If somebody else is brewing, be able to push the kettle to him or her, and this does not allow me to do that. So Bonavita, I have to say, one of the biggest problems with this kettle lead length is not good enough. You should really try, I think, in my opinion, to make a longer kettle lead. So that's my only gripe with build quality, but other than that, solid. One of the top build qualities that we've seen out of any kettle. One thing it's worth noting is inside here, the handle is plastic, and there is a little area up here where the handle is connected to the body of the kettle, which is plastic. Now it is above the maximum fill line, so technically the water is not in contact with the plastic whilst it is heating. However, obviously there's going to be steam hitting this plastic, and if you are very much one of those people that doesn't want any plastic at all, then that's going to be an issue for you. I'm okay with this. For me, that's okay. If the plastic was submerged in the water, then I wouldn't be using the kettle, but I'm all right with that. Apart from that, all stainless steel in the lid and the body, so that's good. Let's focus on the third area, which is styling. And I think that that's what really sets this kettle apart. You've got the gooseneck design, which I think is a very pretty styling. It's got a really nice profile. I think it's well thought out, well designed, nice. The logo is you know there, but nothing too obtrusive, nothing too in your face. Nice styled, good profile. I think that you can't really complain. In my opinion, this would suit any Gong Fu session. So styling, top notch. Give it good marks on styling. Next, capacity. Capacity of this, I have a problem with. The capacity of this, let me just make sure I heat up some water. The capacity of this is 1 litre. I don't think that 1 litre for me is just a bit small. It's the same size as the Camjove here, and I always feel it's just a little bit too small for my sessions. I feel like I'm just having to go to the kitchen to refill my kettle a bit earlier than I would want. As I said, they make a 1.7 litre kettle, which is quite significantly bigger, and that might be a better option. I don't know how long it takes for it to heat up. We'll talk about heating time in a bit. So 1.7 may be a better option. I think kind of 1.3s upwards are good size kettles for Gong Fu Brewing. For me, this is a little bit small, but it's workable. It certainly is workable. It just means you can't be too lazy. Get up and change the water or refill as you wish. Let's have a bit more of this tea. Second infusion. It's gonna really unfold a bit more. And hopefully I can get out of this slightly groggy state that I'm in. I'm not used to drinking as much alcohol, but it was done all for the purposes of research. Hopefully we'll bring some videos to you soon on that. Okay, so next is speed of brew. And this is where I was a little bit surprised, I have to say. We're gonna go through the speeds of the kettles that we reviewed previously. Let me just get this nice brew going here. So, just to give you some benchmarks so you understand how this Bonavita kettle is performing compared to its competitors. So, the Russell Hobbs was the fastest, and that brewed 1 litre of water from room temperature to boiling point in 2 minutes and 9 seconds. The iKettle did it in 2 minutes and 18 seconds. The Sage Brewer kettle did it in 3 minutes 31. The Camjove here did it in 4 minutes and 19 seconds. So, what would you guess, given those benchmarks, what would you expect the Bonavita to achieve it in? Well, I have to say, quite surprisingly, the Bonavita did it in 6 minutes and 1 second. So significantly slower, almost 3 times slower than the Russell Hobbs. And I have noticed this in my sessions. It's a little bit frustrating. You want to brew and it just takes its time. A lot of the reason for that is because it's quite accurate with its temperature. So there's a payoff here. Because it really tries to hit exactly the temperature that you are setting and doesn't want to overshoot, so it doesn't go too fast with the acceleration of the heat, and then it will overshoot the temperature. So when it starts to approach the temperature, it really slows down the heating, and I think that that is one of the main reasons why it's so slow. But just generally, even getting it up to kind of above 30, 40, 50 degrees is a little bit of a sluggish affair, and I would definitely like to see it be a lot quicker. So in terms of speed of heating up water, it's definitely lowest in the rankings, although, as I say, it is more accurate. And that is the next thing that we're going to talk about, is temperature control. And this is where the kettle really comes into its own. So it's got some very easy buttons on the front of the kettle. You've got an on-off button here. You've got a temperature set button, and the temperature set button allows you to either select preset temperatures by clicking through them. So you can click through and you can say 60, 80, 85, 88, 96 and 98, and in Fahrenheit that is starting at 140, 176, 185, 190, 205 and 208, which I have to say are pretty good temperature intervals. They would pretty much cover the majority of your tea types. However, if you want to get really detailed, you can push the up down button and you can select to the degree. This is really, really great. You can really select your temperature very, very easily. The temperature accuracy, as I said, is very good. It brings it up to temperature, and when it reaches close to your set temperature, it slows down and just keeps adding a bit of power until it reaches it. It only overshoots by maybe 1 or 2 degrees, which if you compare that to other kettles is really, really good. So clearly Bonavita have focused on accuracy here. The gooseneck spout, I have had feedback from other people that this cools down the water a little bit. In my test, it wasn't that significant, maybe a couple of degrees. So you may want to go a couple of degrees more than you were expecting. But really, we are talking very, very, very fine tuning here. So good features here, very accurate. And you can set the temperature exactly as you want. Another great thing is you've always got a live display of temperature. So throughout the session, it will always, I think it holds that for, well, a good amount of time, at least half an hour. It holds the temperature display there so you can see how hot the water is at all times. That's a great function there, and something that not all variable temperature kettles have. Another great feature on the temperature control is that it has a hold function. So after you push the on off button, if you push the hold button, it will reach the temperature that you've set and then hold the temperature there. So you can just sit while you're having your session, you can chat, and you know that whatever temperature you've set, it will hold it there. When you go to brew your tea, let me just have a sip here. And then I will brew another batch. So now this is currently being held, and this temperature that it's set at is, 62 degrees. That's why it's not going up. So I'm gonna push the temperature set button until it gets to 96 degrees. Right, so now it's gonna stop flashing. It's showing 96 was the set temperature. Now it's gone down to 91 degrees, so I know that I'm a little bit off the temperature that I want. But after I've picked up the kettle, when you put the kettle back down, you immediately push the hold button again, it will again bring it to temperature and hold it there. So you've got to remember when you put the kettle down to push the hold button. It was different with one of the other variable temperature kettles. It didn't matter how much you use, it will always hold it at that temperature until you switch off the hold function. In this kettle, you have to, when you remove the kettle, it automatically switches off the hold function, and when you put it back, you have to push the button, which I think makes sense. It took a little bit of time to kind of just remember to do that, but it makes sense. So once you've poured the water, you can then put it back down and immediately push the hold button, and it will then again hold it at that temperature. So really, really good temperature control. Let's talk about some of the criticisms that I have regarding temperature control. The first one is that you cannot go below 60 degrees Celsius or 140 Fahrenheit. Now I know for the vast majority of the teas that you're going to be brewing, that's not going to be a problem. But if you're brewing like Gyokuro or, you know, those very, very kind of interesting, strong, high umami, shade-grown Japanese green teas, you're probably going to want to be brewing slightly under that. It's a shame that it doesn't, that Bonavita haven't brought it down to kind of minimum temperature of around 45 or 50 degrees. But, you know, as I said, it'll be fine for the majority of the teas that you brew. Another issue that I have, very small issue, but, you know, we might as well go in depth here, is that when it reaches temperature, there's nothing that tells you that it's reached temperature. So it just stops. And yet, you know, if you having a session in kind of relative silence, you can hear it. But if music is playing in the background, you have to continuously check. Some of the kettles that we reviewed gave a little auditory tone, a little beep. Some of that was annoying. So, you know, obviously I prefer it to be silent than annoy the session with a loud, intrusive beep. But it would have been nice if there was some little tone just to show you that it had reached temperature. Apart from that, I think that the variable temperature control on this is exemplary. It's really, really probably the best that we have played around with. Right, moving on to the next topic for review, and that is ergonomics, the brewing pleasure, how it makes you feel whilst brewing. And this is again where Bonavita really steps up because of that gooseneck pouring spout. The pour on this is really controllable, very, very controllable. You can control the speed. You can go very, very, very slow. You can increase the speed. It's extremely accurate. It's excellent, excellent pouring function. Really, really good. And that's one of the reasons why everyone likes to pick up this kettle in the tea and barista world. If I compare the pour on this gooseneck compared to the Camjove, which was my favorite pouring kettle, let me just show you here. With this one, again, you can control the speed to go very, very slow and fast. Probably the Bonavita just has a little bit more control. Yeah, I would say out of the two, I probably just about prefer the pouring function on this. Both of them are excellent, and to be honest with you, you know, it gives you everything you need for ultimate control over your Gongfu steeps. So the ergonomics on pouring, excellent. The as I said, the look, I love. I think that it really, really works well. The feel of all the material is really, really great. I do have one issue, and that is the handle. For me, there's something that's not quite right in the design of this handle. I know that it's been designed so that the top, your index finger fits into the top groove, and the other fingers should fit nicely behind. But when you have a full kettle, when the kettle is heavy, there's the balance doesn't quite feel right, and you feel like you're kind of squishing all of your fingers to the top of the handle a little bit. I don't know, for me, there's something not quite right. And the first time I picked up this kettle, that was a little bit of a disappointment. I felt that the comfort on holding wasn't as good as it looks. It's again, a minor point. I am really, really digging deep in this review. I think that in general, the ergonomics on this kettle are much better than most. Just a little area that I think could be improved. Finally, the last part of review are any special features. And one thing that I really like about this kettle is it has a timer function. Let me show you what I mean. So if I wanted to brew this, say, for 20 seconds, this sip spring, then when I take the kettle off and I start to pour, you'll see that the display shows 0000. If after I've put the lid on the Gaiwan, I push the plus button, it starts to count. And it will count seconds and minutes, but obviously with Gongfu Brewing, usually it's a matter of seconds. So I'm looking at around 15 seconds until I do my pour. One thing that's very important to note is you cannot put the kettle back down onto the base. If you do that, it stops the timer. I was trying to think, would there be a way around that? It would be nice if there was a way that I could put the kettle back down, it would hold temperature, but it would still show me the countdown. See, I'm overbrewing here. 31, 32 seconds. So it's great. It's a really nice function, actually. It's a very small feature, but it is very useful. I know that it's often used for pour over coffees. I'm assuming that's what it's used for anyway. So as I said, when you put the kettle back on the base, it resets and goes back to temperature, which is as you would expect, and then you can push hold to bring it back to temperature. So that's as you'd expect. I wonder if there'd be any way that Bonavita could somehow allow the timer function to continue even though the kettle is on its base. I'm going to switch that off because we've got enough tea. I have to say that the noise of this kettle is really, really, really low. Compared to other kettles, I think it's really quite discreet. It's not one of those kind of vacuum cleaner loud rumbles that's going to disturb your tea session. Very, very discreet. Okay, so those are the 8 subjects for review. Let's run through them one more time as a recap. Price, really, really good. I think it's an excellent price. Varies depending on where you are, but in general, compared to the competitors, it's a good price for what you're getting. Build quality is excellent, really, really solid. I like that. My big gripe with this is the shortness of this kettle lead. That really did frustrate me during the tea sessions. I had to get out extension leads just to kind of make it workable. I really wish it had a longer lead. And that bit of plastic inside, even though it's above the waterline, I know that there will be some people that will not want to use a kettle purely because there's some plastic on the inside of the body. And the next is the styling. I think the styling is excellent. Really, really good. I like the profile of this gooseneck spout. It's really grown on me, and I think that the footprint of this kettle is really, really nice. It's compact. It's not some big hulking kettle, and I just think it suits any tea session. I like the styling of it. Capacity, a little bit small for me. I would like it to be a bit bigger. It will be fine for the majority of your tea sessions, but if you go through quite lengthy tea sessions like I do, and you drink a lot of tea, then a little bit bigger would be better. And you can opt for the 1.7 litre version of this. Time for heating up water is a bit of a problem. It's a bit slow, 6 minutes and 1 second compared to kind of the 2 to 3 to 4 minutes of the other kettle. So it's definitely a lot slower. So you have to be a bit patient with this. If you are one of those people that would like to get on with your tea session a little bit quicker, then, you know, maybe it teaches you patience a little bit, you know, because one of the things that it definitely does is give you good temperature control. Very, very accurate, nice live function, nice hold function, so you can keep the temperature at the temperature that you've set. Easy to set the temperatures. You've got one click to go through the majority of the tea categories, and then you've got fine tuning. Really, really love it. Shows you Fahrenheit and Celsius, so it's a really, really high spec in terms of temperature control and variable temperature. The problem, it doesn't go below 60 degrees, which I think is a little bit of a shame. It would be nice if Bonavita kind of made the minimum more like 45 degrees Celsius. Next up is ergonomics, and you've got that lovely pour. The pour on this is probably the best feature on it. It is probably the finest pouring control that you can get out of any kettle that we have played around with. And, you know, definitely a highlight for using this kettle. So ergonomics are really, really good. I do think the handle might be able to be tweaked to be a little bit more comfortable, especially when the kettle is full. And finally, the bells and whistles, that little timer is a great function. If they could figure out a way to allow you to put the kettle down and keep the function of timer going, that would be even better. Overall, this kettle has been part of our Gongfu setup for 6 months, and we love it. I think that it stands up with the best. I always revert back to this as my benchmark. A very cheap kettle, quite rattly. Build quality is not great, but very, very good performing kettle. Really, really good to use. Great ergonomics, and it stands up next to it. In fact, I think it is slightly above it with that pour function and that temperature control. I think that this is the best tea kettle overall that we have ever reviewed, and I certainly would recommend it to anybody out there who's looking to buy a kettle that's really quite affordable but high spec in terms of its temperature control. Let me know what you think. If you've got the Bonavita gooseneck kettle, let me know your thoughts, any gripes, what you love about it, anything I missed out, so we can help people make better buying decisions. That's it, tea heads. If you made it to the end of this video, then make sure you hit it with a thumbs up. Check out our YouTube playlist and let us know if there are any videos that you would like us to make. If you're ever in London, then come visit us in Camden to say hi and taste our wares. If you have any questions or comments, then please fire them over. Other than that, I'm a slightly less groggy Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags, keep drinking the good stuff, and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.